MHK is on, one of the Onchan MHKs, until recently Minister at the Department of Health and Social Security, an MHK since 2016, and now back on the backbenchers. So if you want to chat to Rob Callister, obviously there may be some things we can't talk about, but we'll cover as much as we can between now and 1. You're invited to call, text, email or WhatsApp. And Faster Mike, Rob Callister.
Good afternoon, Andy. Thank you for the invitation.
No, good to talk to you. First of all, before we go any further, what can't we say? What can't we talk about?
Well, we know that the Chief Minister wrote to the Tynwald Members' Standards Committee referring my dismissal as Health Minister, and it's actually just in that letter dated the 17th of November, the matters relates to my dismissal. But obviously, people can obviously voice their own concerns, and I'm so grateful over the last couple of months that people have contacted me via email and correspondence. I'm incredibly indebted to everybody that's contacted me, because it has got me through a couple of difficult days, and those kind words, just tiny messages, has helped immensely, because I think a lot of people don't realise, the Chief Minister doesn't have to refer this to the committee, under the Council of Ministers Act, sections 3 and 5. He can quite happily just remove a minister without having to give a reason. So I am looking forward to this investigation, and I'm looking forward to seeing what the investigation and the outcomes of that investigation when it concludes.
Okay, have you worked out a proportion? How many are complimentary? How many are critical of the messages you've had over the past?
All the messages I've received were positive. Obviously, there's a few trolls online, which is fine. Everybody's entitled to their view. I mean, even yesterday when I was out walking on the promenade, I was stopped by people, congratulating me for coming onto your show this morning, and just saying keep your head up, and I think people don't quite realise there's two things that happen. When you become an MHK, one, you potentially could lose your seat at some point, and secondly, if you become a minister, you can be sacked at any time. And I think we all accept those sort of terms of our role or our engagement. But as you say, for myself personally, I found this quite difficult, because I haven't been able to get the information I needed to understand why I was sacked as the Health and Social Care Minister. Everybody I'd spoke to had said I was doing a good job. There was just some elements of it which obviously need to be covered in that investigation, where some people felt I wasn't doing the job, and that needs to be fully investigated. But from everybody I'd met, external, and the hundreds of people that contacted me in my tenure as Health and Social Care Minister, said I was listening, I was caring, I was understanding, I was trying to help them. And to be removed from a position after 5 weeks is incredibly difficult, because there's no way that anybody can fully understand a department in that amount of time. And I do just want to put on record my sincere thanks to all the staff within the Department of Health and Social Care and in Manx Care and the Transformational Board for all their support they've given me in the time that I was the Health and Social Care Minister.
In the short time you were there, and obviously taking note, the transition, the Michael's report, transitioning DHSC into Manx Care and what have you, I don't know how many chief executives there have been since then. And Manx Care is obviously under a lot of pressure. It all comes down to money and resources. I mean, is Manx Care a problem that can be solved?
I think Manx Care, from what I saw within my very short period of time, and from what I witnessed as a backbench at MHK, I think Manx Care is taking an incredibly difficult situation, and they are trying to improve things. And that's why I myself, as a backbench at MHK, and as the Minister, I felt we have to allow Manx Care the 3-year period minimum to allow them to really get into some of the problems and to change the culture, change the behaviour. And myself as the Minister, for the short period I was there, I was also trying to put that within the department as well, and to allow Manx Care the time, but also to support them, but also to be that critical friend. And I think that's the problem with our health and social care system at the moment. We know what needs to be changed, but to change the culture, to change behaviour, to change policies, and to do things differently is going to take time. And I'm just really embarrassed, and I apologise to the people of the Isle of Man that I feel I wasn't given sufficient time to make the changes that I desperately wanted as the Minister at the time.
With Rob Callister, and if you want to get in touch, by all means, call 66 13 68, text, email or WhatsApp. So as a backbencher now, what do you see as your role?
Well, mine is it always has been a critical friend, regardless if I sit on a committee or if I'm a minister or if I'm a backbench MHK. I'll always be critical when I find something is not working, but I'll also be supportive of things when I think they are working well. Obviously, I've gone from working, 10, 12, 15-hour days over the last few weeks to suddenly being very quiet again. So I'm going to take this opportunity just to recover, and then I'll be back in the new year doing the role that I've done for the last 6 years, and that is to be that critical friend when I need to be, but also that supportive, because I think a lot of the time we are very critical, but we're not supportive enough when things are working well.
Okay, a message in from Callum, who lives in Onchan, so presumably one of your constituents, who just said, do you have any inside information on what is going on at Onchan Commissioners?
Well, Onchan Commissioners, I think there's always been problems with Onchan Commissioners. I think it comes down to personalities. Myself personally, as an MHK and somebody who was an Onchan Commissioner, I've seen some great changes over the last year or so in Onchan. I think they are trying to improve the look and the feel of the village. And I think if you look, anyone who went to their lights switch on last week, the park was full of families, of young children having a great time. They are trying to change. What we need, and the honest answer here, Andy, is what we need is more people who live in Onchan to step forward to become commissioners, and possibly even our MHKs in the future. But to start to do that, you've got to have the conviction to go and knock on the doors and say, I believe I can deliver the services better. But there are individuals there that I think need to possibly change, and I think it only can change is by giving people choice. And that makes no difference if it's on a local election or on a national election. If people are not happy with their representatives, then other people have to step forward to say, I believe I can do the job better.
Okay, and this is where we often hear about the disconnect between the voter, the constituent, and the politicians. And it's something that's mentioned all the time. So I'm just wondering how we can bring these two together. As you say, if somebody, instead of sitting there complaining, wants to actually do something, what's the first step? How do you, putting yourself forward for a public vote can be a harrowing job to do, and to put yourself into the public arena. So why do you think some people are happy to complain and not do that?
Well, I think there's different things people can do. One, you can complain. If you're unhappy with a service, then either contact myself or Julie Edge, who's the other Onchan MHK, or contact your commissioners, or you can contact the local authority directly. If you feel that the people that are representing you are not doing a good enough job, first point is to contact them and have a coffee with them. Both myself and Julie will be always available to have a coffee with somebody, to sit down if they feel a service or a particular function is not working correctly. We'll always listen to people. And thereafter, if they still don't feel that we're representing them, then the next step is for them to step forward and to stand for election themselves. The job, as I've said on so many occasions, is incredibly difficult. I don't think the general public realise how much pressure you are under on a small island of 24 publicly elected members, where everything you say and do is scrutinised. And I've found that as my sacking as the Health and Social Care Minister, I found that incredibly intense. And it has affected my mental health over the last month. I'm okay now, but there was a couple of days where it really seriously affected me, because I just couldn't get my head around. I don't mind being sacked from a position if I've made a mistake. I'm a very honest, very open, transparent member of the House of Keys. I'll always give an honest answer to somebody. But there are occasions where you physically cannot give the information to the public that they want to hear. And the public sometimes don't understand that. So it's not the fact that you're trying to be abrasive, you're not trying to answer the question, but sometimes you're not able to answer the question in the manner or in the detail that some people want.
Okay, let's go to the lines now. And Ken's with us, first of all. Hi, Ken, you're live with Rob Callister, MHK.
Good afternoon. I was just wondering, in the 6 weeks he was minister, did the state of the current home in Peel go across his desk? And can he tell us, does he know how much Manx Care has actually saved us? Because they just seem to have done what the previous occupants did and just asked Tynwald for more millions.
Okay, afternoon, Ken. The answer of your question is yes, I did have a meeting with the trustees of Corran Court. I can't really give details of that conversation, but I did meet with them. and I gave them some proposals and ideas of what they were looking to achieve. I hope that advice was taken on board, and I wish them well in the future. So yes, the answer is to your question, but I can't really go into detail on what we would discuss.
And the other bit about Manx Care saving money, well, the creation of Manx Care, separate from DHSC, is that a net saving for the Manx taxpayer, or is it does it cost more?
Well, part of the funding model that Manx Care was given, they've got to save around 1% every year. And we know, and I've said in a previous interview, the funding model, what was very clearly outlined within the Sir Jonathan Michael report of how much they should get. But unfortunately, inflation is so high, it's really, I don't think when he wrote that, he actually had that level of inflation. So as we go into the next financial year, and we're obviously still waiting for details on what the budget will be, whatever the budget or wherever that is set, they are going to be under extreme pressure. And this is why the next Department of Health and Social Care Minister has to sit down and work very closely with the Chief Executive team within Manx Care. It has to be a uniformal team that work very closely. One, to deliver the services. Two, to deliver the savings. But also to make sure we're making those improvements that so many people on this island desperately want to see within our health and social care service.
Can I just ask, were you ever chairman of the MUA? Sorry.
I was chairman of Manx Utilities from September until I was appointed the minister. So I was in that role for around 9 months. It was an incredibly difficult period for Manx Utilities. But again, when we look at brilliant executive teams and the resources and the help and the support I had as the political member, that to me is the beacon of which I think all government departments should be looking at, because they had to get...
So I just want to ask you then about the con that's going on about smart meters being green. What is green about a smart meter?
Well, I've not heard... Well, I wouldn't say they're green. I think what it does, it allows people to have the information at their fingertips, and it allows people that are on pre-meters to be able to update them as quickly as possible, and from an app and from the comfort of their home, so they don't have to go to shops to update their smart cards. But I think, we do have to change. I remember when I was Manx Utilities chairman, I'm no longer in that position, but we have to remember that the Isle of Man is the meters that we used have come to the end of their life, and they do need to be replaced now. And I think that is at the heart of this. If it does provide some green initiatives, then I'm happy with that as well, Ken.
Well, it doesn't, though, does it? You produce, I think it was 2 years ago, this leaflet that said about it was actually green, saying it was going to be green. There's nothing green about it.
Okay, well, I'm not aware of that, Ken, but I think there are significant benefits to the new smart meters. And, as the chairman, as I was in that position, I fully support them. But I think at the heart of this is the fact that the meters that we use in our homes and our businesses today, and you can't get replacement parts. So we have the previous, as the chairman of Manx Utilities when I was, they had a duty to make sure that we could actually have meters in homes correctly, and that's why this needed to be replaced.
Okay, all right, thanks, Ken.
Okay, thanks very much. Bye.
All right, good to hear from you. Tammy, as a question from Tammy, but I'll also back it up with one from Graham. And Tammy said, as a backbencher now, what does Rob Callister think of the Kroger gas field? Should we go ahead? And I'll pair that with Graham, who just said the island's energy future surely lies in geothermal. It's clean, green, unobtrusive, available 24/7, 365, and totally under our control, but is never mentioned by politicians. Why aren't we looking at geothermal? Gas and geothermal.
Okay, geothermal, I think I've listened to enough of your programmes, and I've listened to enough information coming into the programme to say if that is an option, then we should explore it. With regard to Kroger, I think at the moment, as a backbench MHK and even as a minister, I was looking to see if there's any solid evidence to show that there is something in that field. And if there is, then I will make a solid decision at that point. But at the moment, it's just a listening brief for me. There's not enough evidence for me to make a solid and a sound decision based on drilling or not drilling. I want to actually find some data that says that there is something in that field, and there is this amount of benefits to the island, possibly from drilling. So, unfortunately, I am sitting on the fence on that one, and it's based on evidence only.
Hypothetically, then, without evidence, if there were to be something there that proved positive and proved to be, I mean, they're talking telephone numbers, and that's the whole issue. We don't really know. But if the telephone numbers that they talk about are available to the Manx Treasury, is it something we should do you think, hypothetically?
I think hypothetically, if there is something significant, there is a significant find there, and the Isle of Man can accelerate its green agenda by using some of the profits from that drilling over a short period of time, then I think we should explore it. But at the moment, as I say, I haven't seen any evidence to say there is something there for us to really get hold of.
Okay, a question in from Ian in Ramsey. Some members in Keys seem to do nothing but ask questions in Keys and Tynwald. How many questions have you put in Keys and Tynwald lately?
In this administration, I'm not too sure. Possibly somewhere around 50, I would have thought. Not too many. And the reason for that, Andy, is because I always know there is a cost attached to every question that is asked. So what I normally do is try to get the information via email first, a simple email, because a lot of the questions I'm asking is from constituents who want answers and they need them quickly. So, but if there is something of public concern, then I will raise it in the Keys to raise the profile of that question. That's how I've always worked in the last 6 years. But so I will not ask questions via quantity. I will try and always base them on quality.
So, I mean, there are certain members who do ask lots of questions. Is there any element of showboating? And it does cost money.
It does, and I think that's why I've always tried to resolve them via email first, because there is time involved of civil servants, and there's also a cost attached to them. But I do think that, we're all elected with a mandate, and there are some genuine questions that need to be asked. But I think those questions have to be of a certain quality, and they have to be in the public interest. But then they have to be able to follow through with the information that they receive. So I'm just very conscious of when I ask questions that I'm asking them for the right reasons.
How much of it is one in from Paul, who just says, could you ask Rob Callister? He was involved with motorsport at one time as well. What do you think the future of the TT is, and more importantly, the MGP?
I think the future of Manx Grand Prix and for the TT is very positive. I know that the Manx Grand Prix are going to be celebrating their centenary next year, and I think the whole island should get behind that initiative. I think we have to step back as well and say a massive congratulations to the DFE Motorsport team for bringing back the TT in 2022. And I also want to take the opportunity to say a massive thank you to all the marshals, the medics, and the army of volunteers that made those two events possible after almost 3 years absent from the island. So it was brilliant to bring those back. And I think from a positive point of view for the TT, we were able to bring live TT coverage to the Isle of Man for the first time. We introduced a new TT podcast, a brand new fan park that I think was very successful. And we also introduced a risk and safety sort of program for riders and for marshals and for everyone involved, which makes the event safer, which allows us to set the course for the event to be with us for many years to come.
Okay, a message in from Carol, who just says, I'm just trying to find it, Carol. Oh, she said, what's going to happen to the House Drake Hotel, Molly's? Are they ever going to build on it?
In the last administration, I'd made significant inquiries into the owners of that site. I'm still hopeful, and if it was in my powers, I would actually try and compulsory purchase the site.
How long has it been a building site?
It's been a long time. And
10 years?
It's maybe longer than that, actually, because I tried very early on in the last administration. I had conversations, very good conversations with the landowners, because I think it's ideal for first-time buying or even local authority housing. It needs to be developed as soon as possible. And as I say, I was extremely grateful to the family for giving me the time to speak to me. I had a conversation not so long ago, and there just seems to be some positives there. So personally, I hope that either they sell the site to the local authority or to somebody else, and we get it developed as soon as possible.
Okay, do you know anything about the old House Drake holiday camp? What's happening there?
No, I don't know anything about that one, unfortunately.
Okay, and Carol again, where else will Onchan be developed? Because it seems that Onchan is hemmed in. So can the village get bigger? Do you want it to get bigger?
Well, again, in the last administration, under the area plan, I was significantly opposed a development at the top of Birch Hill. It seems to be the next big development that will happen in Onchan, because the rest of Onchan, as Carol rightfully said, is pretty much developed. And I think we've got to remember that the way Onchan is developed, it's developed in sections over the years. So for any further big development in Onchan to happen, we will have to go through a significant amount of change with regard to our infrastructure, the way our traffic flows, and also how we treat our sewerage and rainwater, more importantly. Because unfortunately, within my constituency, there is still areas that significantly flood when we have a heavy rain, and that has to be addressed by Manx Utilities.
Whereabouts is that?
Port Jack is one, and there's some up in Birch Hill as well, up in 2nd Avenue. So there's loads of areas, pockets, where the infrastructure just cannot take heavy water, and it comes out of the drains and it floods backs of properties. And it has been highlighted, with the DOI, with Manx Utilities, and they have done some work, but more needs to be done if we are to make any additional significant add more properties to our constituency.
Okay, and talking of 2nd Avenue, at the back of 2nd Avenue, you're into rural land at the back of 2nd Avenue. Is there any planning envelope at the back of 2nd Avenue?
Yeah, there was some of those areas were highlighted during the area plan. But again, I think if there's any further major development on a business front or on a housing front, then I think Onchan, there was a promise of a thing called the Onchan Master Plan, which would look at all of these problems. Now, I've not seen it since. And now it is triggered by population growth. So I'll be watching that very closely over the next 4 years. But at some point, we do need to have a full review of Onchan, its traffic flow, its housing, its infrastructure and everything.
Okay, I'll give you one of each now, a complimentary, then a critical. I think Mr. Callister's one of those MHKs who tries to do his best. He's not my MHK, so no bias from me. And another one said, Rob needs to man up and move on. People are removed from positions in government all the time. Is he hot-headed and blinkered? Are you hot-headed and blinkered?
I do have a short temper on occasion, if I'm being honest. But on this occasion, I wasn't hot-headed. I was very measured, very controlled. I tried my best. And I think from the people that contacted me after I was removed, I think that's evidenced up. I think he's absolutely right. You do have to man up. But I think anybody who they feel, and as I say, I've got to be careful because of the investigation, anyone who feels that they've been sacked unfairly, regardless of what position they hold, it will always hurt. And this hurts. Okay.
For many years, we've had passionate politicians on the Isle of Man. You wouldn't want to take the passion out of politics, would you?
No. And I think the one thing that I do have more than anything else is my ethics, my honesty. And as you say, the simple... I'll probably get myself in trouble here now, Andy, but the simple solution for me was just to accept a scripted resignation letter. It's in the public domain. That's what I've put in the public domain, so I shouldn't get myself in too much trouble. But that's what I was asked to sign, a scripted resignation letter. I turned that down. I spoke to family and friends, and they said, don't do that, Rob. It's not the right thing to do. Allow the Chief Minister to sack you and then for him to explain his actions to the public. And that's what I've done in this occasion.
We're back with Rob Callister, Onchan MHK, in just a few moments' time. Lots of messages to get through. And if you want to call, then call 66 13 68.
Concerned, confused or curious about climate change? Want to do your part? Then visit netzeromatrix.com, helping businesses and individuals understand the net zero targets that government has set, how they'll be achieved and what impact it will have upon us. Plus, get practical advice and tips for saving energy, the options available for switching to renewable energy technologies, and much more. We all need to do what we can. So visit netzeromatrix.com and join us.
This Christmas, giving a gift means more than ever, but can't think what to give this year. Then, for something different, why not give a meaningful gift of a donation to Ramsey Historic Pier for posterity? Every pound helps, with options to buy a wooden decking plank with personalised plaques and legacy donations. Find out more. Call Graham on 355 104. That's 355 104. This audio has been kindly sponsored by Paul Carey & Sons.
Seemed like a good idea at the time. The party buffet at your place for that many people. Take it easy with Sainsbury's and Iceland's exclusive ranges of chilled and frozen party food. At ShopRite, you really can. Inspired ideas, no defrosting or prep necessary. And with great prices, no need to hang back or spend a fortune. Absolutely no pressure party hosting. You'll love every minute. ShopRite, proudly locally owned.
Mutual Insurance.
This festive season on the Nation station, the winning continues with Manx Radio's 12 Days of Christmas.
Up for grabs, we have a £100 Haldane Fisher voucher, a beauty hamper from Sense of Man, an Apple Watch from Manx Telecom, and lots of other goodies under the tree that could be yours.
Manx Radio's 12 Days of Christmas, brought to you by SpectrumWindows.im.
Your chance to win this festive season, and it all starts tomorrow.
The Mannin Line, brought to you by NetZeroMatrix.com, the Isle of Man's main net zero progress website.
Faster by 27 minutes to 1 live with Rob Callister, MHK. One problem is the lack of digital technology from booking hospital appointments online, digital forms for social security, digital applications for driving applications, blue badge. Does the government have any plans to move into a digital age and use less paper and possibly help climate change?
Yeah, I think this is quite a common question that's asked, and I think we do need to move into the digital age. The question is, there is significant cost attached to that. And the problem is how do we find the money during a cost of living crisis? And the question is also, how do we find it on the back of everything we've had to spend during COVID-19? So, you know, I know there was, going slightly off topic a little bit, we were talked about the TT scoreboard and spending over £1 million on the TT scoreboard, and I'm desperately wanting that to be replaced as fast as possible. But at the time, you've got to get the timing right. I don't think at the moment we can spend £1 million on a TT scoreboard. I don't think we can spend millions of pounds trying to digitalise our health service. I think at the moment what people want to see is an improvement in the core services. Then at the end of that, then to improve our digital services.
In terms of Manx Care, obviously, I mean, do you think Ramsey Cottage Hospital is safe for the foreseeable future?
Yes, as far as I'm aware. I was hoping to have a visit around the Cottage Hospital when I was the Health Minister. I think it's a perfect place for minor unit injuries, but it does need to have a purpose, especially for the north of the island.
Okay, a message in. This is from Derek. Hi, Derek. Just talking. Are the people of, the politicians of Onchan jealous of the fact that Braddon just keeps on growing?
Well, there's some areas on the island. We're very fortunate on the island that we have a lot of green areas, and there are areas for development. But if we are going to develop, then they have to be in the right areas, and they have to be sympathetic to the landscape, and they also have to deliver what the island needs. Onchan, as I say, has grown over the years, but there isn't that much area of development left, unfortunately. So you do have to think, going into green field sites. I personally want us to focus more on brownfield sites, to get them developed, and then to see if we need to expand the island a bit more.
Apart from Molly's, any brownfield sites in Onchan?
Well, there's the few. There's loads of little sites, but there isn't major sites. So obviously the back of Doughty's, there's an opportunity there. Obviously, if we start moving schools, because obviously the Onchan schools need replacing at some point. So the question is, where do we actually stick them? I think I've always gone on the record to say I'd love to stick one of our primary schools near Blackberry Lane. So it's slightly out of the village, which then reduces the amount of traffic in the village. But again, all of these need long conversations, especially around the infrastructure, access and services, etc.
Okay, slightly, I mean, only 100 yards out of Onchan, but Summerland. I mean, that's sat there for so long. It's an eyesore and just a reminder of the fact that we don't seem to be able to do anything.
Yes, Summerland, Middlemarch, Lord Street. These are all key developments that need to be developed, basically. And this is where the Manx Corporate Development team are now looking at these sites. The sooner we get these developed, the better it will be for the island.
Okay, you were in business in the finance industry for 20-odd years?
Yes.
So you know all about making decisions and taking decisions. What seems to slow things down in government? Is it elected members? Is it the civil service? Where does the risk aversion come from?
I think sometimes, and this is quite an interesting question actually, in the private sector, if you run a company, you're looking after the company, you're obviously looking after your shareholders. So you can make quick decisions. In government, they've got to obviously apply with regulations. They've got to go through a process. Sometimes you need to consultate on them. So the systems are slow, because what we've got to do is to make sure that the decisions the island's making are not just good today, but good for the future. And I think one of the things I did find in the Council of Ministers, which I thought was quite strange, some of the decisions we were making were quite quick. And I myself personally, as a politician and even as a person in business, I like to actually gather the evidence first and then to look at it and to make sure that what I'm standing in front of people to argue or to actually say is the right decision, not just for today, but also for tomorrow.
Okay, a message in... Pat said, it's sad that Rob lost his minister's post at Health. He may be the minister to sort out the abuses of procurement on some of the maintenance contracts employed by the health services. And the question of money going to waste or the money not being used for the way that it is to be used... And again, it just seems, who will sort that out? Will that be Manx Care or will that be DHSC?
Well, Manx Care obviously have got to deliver their savings. And as far as I'm aware, having conversations with the team within Manx Care, they were making the efficiencies, the savings. I think across government, the procurement system needs to improve. We need to make sure we get value for money. And again, I remember when I was an Onchan commissioner that we put together a robust case about replacing kitchens, something as simple as that. And we proved to government that we could replace the kitchens within our local authority properties for $3,000 less than the government procurement, and they wouldn't let us do it. So there's things like that. Once
$3,000 what per property?
Per kitchen, yes. So it was significant savings, not just for government, but also to the local authority who would have to repay that money back. I think once these things are identified, then they should be followed through. We've got to get value for money. We've got to produce savings. I mean, money's going to get tight over the next few years. We've got to get the maximum value for every single pound we spend, not just in health and social care, but also in every single government department.
Back with Rob Callister in a moment.
This is the Isle of Man talking, the Mannin Line.
Call, text, email or WhatsApp with Rob Callister till 1 today.
Running a business is always tough, but these days it seems to be getting harder. Keeping on top of sales, recruiting staff and trying to keep up with the accounts can mean that there just aren't enough hours in the day. One phone call to Shimmin Wilson, a Manx firm of chartered accountants and business consultants, is all you need. Shimmin Wilson can help you with an extensive range of accountancy-related services and a team on hand to help you through these tough times. Your peace of mind is only one call away on 627744.
Call the UPVC window specialists, Phoenix Windows, for quality windows, doors and conservatories, along with fascias, soffits, barge boards, guttering and all building work undertaken. With free estimates, free surveys, guaranteed work and all island coverage. Phoenix Windows don't use standard off-the-shelf frames. Their windows are made to measure, which means you get a perfect fit, less bulky frames and more glazing. Call 816628 or visit phoenixwindows-iom.com.
For many people, times are hard and getting harder. Sometimes it can be a struggle to even put food on the table. Isle of Man Food Bank is here to help anyone in any crisis, but we need your help to continue. Could you volunteer to help with stores or stock management, as a driver, on the phones, or by setting up a drop-off point? If you can, please call us on 646 999. Isle of Man Food Bank. You can bank on us. Brought to you by Descon.
It's Manx Radio's Christmas Classics on board the dining car on Wednesday the 14th of December. Enjoy a 3-course meal and party away to the best Christmas hits, hosted by Carnaby Street's Chris Williams. Tickets are just £49 per person. Visit rail.im or book now on 697457. Manx Radio's Christmas Classics, in association with your nation station, Manx Radio.
At the sitting of the House of Keys on the 14th of June 2022, Dr Alex Allinson, MHK for Ramsey, was given leave to introduce a private member's bill which would enable adults who are terminally ill to be provided at their request with specified assistance to end their own life. A public consultation has been launched which seeks your views and opinions on this controversial and very complex matter. Dr Alex Allinson explains his motivation for seeking to introduce the bill on agenda at 6 p.m. this evening with me, Phil Gordon, on Manx Radio. Should you have the right to decide how and when you die? Or is the sanctity of life not something politicians should be interfering with?
The Mannin Line, brought to you by NetZeroMatrix.com, the world's leading carbon register and validation ecosystem.
It's 18 minutes before 1. Hi, Bonzo. You're live with Rob Callister.
Hello there, Andy, and hello there, Rob. Just thinking about your situation at DHSC, I wonder whether it was, how do you think perhaps it was the case that your interpretation of your role as minister differed from how others saw your role as minister, and that was the thing that went into the gears and ground them.
Yeah, I think the problem we've got, Bonzo, is the fact is I think I was the first minister that's gone into a department with no chief executive in post, and we also had a department that had significant vacancies. So the overall morale in the department was quite low and confidence was low. And some of that also equated to, the significant change in staff over the last 18 months. But I do want to put on record my sincere thanks to the Department of Health and Social Care staff who did support me incredibly well over my 5 weeks. The difference in opinion appears to be on a political level with the political members. And unfortunately, myself, it's a lesson I'll learn that I feel myself personally. I was focused on working with Manx Care on the Transformational Board, trying to listen to the people of the Isle of Man. And again, I'm incredibly grateful to everybody that wrote to me because it gave me a better understanding of what needed to change. And I was starting to make that change. But at the heart of it, I think nobody would argue that 5 weeks to try and get your head around the Department of Health and Social Care is just not long enough.
Okay, and what's your view, Bonzo?
Well, of course, it's a complex department, and of course, the minister, the department, well, in our system, as in Westminster, the department is the minister, but then again, the minister is the department only as far as the Chief Minister or Prime Minister wishes them to be. And in a smaller assembly such as ours, where you've got 24 MHKs who are then the pool to be departmental members and ministers, and where you don't have party whips or anything, where it's a question of independence. The spritzes and strains between political colleagues can be much more marked and amplified. I've seen these things, obviously, working to ministers, as I did once upon a time in Westminster, but that was a much broader pool and a broader church, whereas with our system, you have a few people, and if there are clashes of interpretation as to role and policy, then things are going to escalate rather quickly.
Okay, all right. Thanks for that, Bonzo. We need to move on, but thanks for your points today. Pete puts it another way, Rob Callister. The Department of Health and Social Care, the ministerial job has always been a poison chalice. Did you feel like that?
No, I didn't. I felt I went in to a department, and very quickly I discovered there was a department that I actually quite enjoyed. I felt I could make significant change. I liked the people I was working with. There just seemed to have been a breakdown in communication on a political level. And I do have a lot of sympathy for the Chief Minister. And again, this is all in the public domain, so I shouldn't get myself in trouble for this. I felt the Chief Minister was put in an impossible position. And to the best of my knowledge, he was given an ultimatum by the political members in the department who said that I was incompetent. And I absolutely absolutely refute that. And again, that's in the public domain. I think when I sat down and looked at my CV and looked at my qualifications, looked at my skill set, I think it's an absolute insulting thing to say. And I think, especially to my constituents in Onchan who have elected me not just as a Onchan commissioner to represent their best interests, but also to the people of Onchan that have elected me and made me top of the poll in Onchan twice. So I think those three members, absolutely, if nothing else, owe an apology to my constituents.
Okay, a message in just to say, I think it's impossible to judge whether or not somebody's doing a good job after 5 weeks. It would appear perhaps Rob was asking the wrong questions. Well, we'll find out. We'll see what happens with the committee. When's that going to happen, by the way?
Well, as I say, the committee has met a few occasions. I've got to be really careful about this. I won't say too much more, but as far as I'm aware, the investigation's still going on. I welcome that report. And as I say, I think it's very important to say again that I did not ask for this investigation. It's quite unique for a chief minister to ask a committee to investigate somebody who has been dismissed as a minister, because as I've said previously, the chief minister can remove or hire or fire anybody without having to give a reason. So I'm grateful that Chief Minister has asked the committee to look at this.
Okay, there's a message in from Paula who just says, can you ask Rob Callister, obviously he was inside the tent for a while, did he feel constrained by being inside the tent? Because he sounds like a bit of a loose cannon.
No, I don't think I am a loose cannon. I think with regard to Paula, I'm not, as you say, when you're sitting in the Council of Ministers, sometimes I felt decisions were being made very quickly. I'm not a person who makes very quick decisions. I like to make sure I get my head around something, and that's why I felt it worked well within the department. I don't think I am a loose cannon, but that's the public's perception.
Is Comyn productive?
I think it is. I think it works incredibly well. And as I say, I never felt constrained in any way. It just, unfortunately, within the department, I just couldn't get a couple of people on side to help me and support me in a department that was going through significant challenges.
Rob Callister, MHK, one of the Onchan MHKs, is with us till 1 today on Mannin Line. This Friday, the Chief Minister, Alfred Cannon, will be on Mannin Line. And a message in from Andy, who just said, could you give us an update on the TT scoreboard? Did we lose a major sponsorship opportunity by not being ready? Apparently somebody was ready to go in, but they pulled out because nothing's been sorted. And will it really cost 7 figures?
That's what the DFE minister has said. It's going to cost over £1 million. I think, as I say, personally, I want the TT scoreboard replaced as fast as possible. I think it's a unique part of the overall package that we provide to our visitors. But as you say, the cost during a cost of living crisis, can £1 million be spent better and elsewhere? I think it can at the moment, but I would like it replaced as soon as possible.
Okay. A message in from 777. The back of Doughty's was earmarked 20 years ago for small industrial units, but nothing has happened. DOI own the old Moran Engineering building in Union Mills as well, so they use it for storing old desks and furniture from schools and DOI offices. Wasted space, says James.
Yeah, I think there are wasted areas in Onchan that needs to be developed. They're only small, they're not big developments. So as soon as we can get them done, all the better, in my opinion.
A message in now regarding this is more about Onchan commissioners, and I just want to go into this. And again, it's difficult to talk about commissioners without getting into personalities. But do you think it is? And because it's a Manx situation, you're Manx. So do we have to find Manx solutions to the problems that we have, or do we import UK civil servants and bureaucrats and leave it to them?
No, I think we've got some very good and we've got some excellent talent here on the Isle of Man. When it comes to local authority representation, I think there are hundreds of local authority and publicly elected members that give hundreds of hours of service every week. And then you have your national politicians that get paid for it. It is a thankless job. And I think the one thing is what people got to remember, our political system, it is amplified because of social media, which I absolutely support myself. I've always used social media. I think it's a good tool to use for you to reach out to sort of message your information to constituents. But on a local level, on a national level, it can be brutal at times. I'm sorry, but it can be brutal at times.
The two sides of social media, obviously, is something that you've found out all about. But do you think you're ever going to get rid of that element? Because obviously they've always been naysayers, they've always been doubting Thomases, but now they're given a platform by being on social media.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. But again, I think from a government point of view, if we go back to when I was Health and Social Care Minister, I received hundreds of messages as the Health and Social Care Minister in respect to services that were not up to standard and people just wanting help and support. Unless you get that negative information, you don't know where to change. The question is how you do it constructively. And that's why every single letter, every single email, every single phone call I got during my time as the Health and Social Care Minister, I actually responded personally. And then I was incredibly grateful that I had a support team within the department that went back with more information. But on every occasion, we tried to help people. So don't give up giving the negative information or telling us when services are not working, because that's the only way we're going to improve things.
Okay, a message from Mick, who just said, my son and his girlfriend have been trying to find a first-time buyer property in Onchan. It's virtually impossible.
Yeah, and I think that the message is across the island. We do need to obviously sort out our housing situation. I think we need to take, and this is where the Housing Community Board come in, we've got to undertake a stock audit to see what housing we have, what housing we need, not just today, but in the future again. And I think first-time buyers is definitely one. More social housing is needed. We also need more 1 and 2 and 4-bed local authority property coming online.
But the fact that young people can't get on the property ladder in Onchan, surely that's a problem storing up.
It's across the island, Andy, and it's, again, if we're wanting the next generation of people to settle here and we want them to make the Isle of Man the home, then we're going to have to seriously listen about the housing shortage. But to do that, we've got to really strip this back and have an audit, because the population of the Isle of Man has not grown. So the question is, if the population hasn't grown, why have we got a housing shortage today, which we didn't have 5 years ago? Now, I think some of that relates to COVID and a breakup of families over the last 5 or 6 years. So we need to understand the whole of the reasons why we've got shortage of housing today, but we didn't 5 or 6 years ago.
Okay, Alison, you're live with Rob Callister, MHK.
Hi, thank you. Hi, Rob. I've no questions for you. I just want to make a comment, if I may, please. I actually think that you're the most honest politician in our current government. The decision that was made by the Chief Minister was the wrong decision. Nobody can be settled into any job in 5 weeks, and I think he should have stood by his minister. But maybe he doesn't like honest politicians.
All right, thank you for that.
Thank you, Alison.
All right, good to hear from you. Thanks for that. And another question, this is Textra 859. What will you see as a good outcome of this review?
I'm not looking for a witch hunt. I think I'd like some satisfaction that I'm not incompetent, because that was the word the Chief Minister said to me. The 3 members felt I was incompetent. I felt that was...
How did you feel?
It hurt, and it still hurts.
You ever been called incompetent before?
No. As I say, it hurt. And to me, I'm happy to be sacked from a role, in any role as a politician, because you accept it. When somebody says that you're incompetent and you don't have the skills to do it, I don't think those members give me the chance. And that is the only part of this that I feel it hurts. Not just hurts myself, it is from the correspondence I've received. A lot of constituents have taken umbrage to that, and a lot of my Tynwald colleagues have taken umbrage to that as well. And if that is the outcome, that I was doing the job to the best of my ability, without a chief executive in post, with vast vacancies in the department, and a team trying their damnedest to improve the services, then I'm happy with that. But I'm not looking for a witch hunt, other than just trying to clear my own name, because I think my own constituents need that as well.
Okay, so are you looking forward to 2023, Rob Callister?
Yeah, I am. I mean, I say I'm going to enjoy Christmas. I've gone from working, I say, up to 15 hours a day to being very quiet. So I'm happy to say that. I will enjoy this time. I will dust myself off, and I'll be ready to start again in 2023.
Still doing the surgeries?
Still doing the monthly surgeries, and I'm extremely grateful for everyone that comes up to the surgery, and I'm extremely grateful for everyone that stops me in the street and talks to me, and who sends me messages, and I'm still getting messages of thanks.
Would you recommend a career as an MHK?
I would do, but people have to be fully aware of the pressures, not just from the role, but also trying your very best to change things that need to be changed.
Okay, thanks for being with us today.
Thank you, Andy.
That's it for Mannin Line today. We're open line tomorrow between 12 and 1 if you wanted to get in touch out of hours. The answer phone is 682-631. You can email manninline@manxradio.com. And this coming Friday, the Chief Minister's on. Alfred Cannon MHK will be on at noon on Manx Radio. Thanks to Paul Moran producing today. Have a good Monday.